Thank you for having me. I'm Trisha, and I work as a counselor in the Vancouver area in Langley. And I'm happy to share with you. I work with a lot of queer clients, so I'm happy to share with you today about um, how I see working with this population of people. So I'm going to put on my PowerPoint. Okay. So I'm calling this being gay or trans or lesbian or bisexual or ... in a straight world. So it's about the experience of being a diverse part of a diverse kind of group of people in a world that doesn't always acknowledge who we are or how we identify. Um, I know we come from all over the world and that your experiences might be quite different. So some of this might fit for you and some of it might not fit for you. You're going to have to figure out how you're going to integrate this into your own personal experience and into your community. For me, I really like to use the word queer to encompass all the variants of gender and sexuality. For me, it's easier than trying to do all the letters like LGBTQ2S, that kind of thing. Not everybody's comfortable with this, and I fully acknowledge that. But I really like it. It's a reclaimed word that the queer community has used, and it includes it. I like it that it's very inclusive. It doesn't kind of say, well, it's this and not that. So it includes lesbian women, gay men, trans people, bisexual people. And then the Indigenous experience is Two-Spirit people, which is a very old tradition within their communities and their spirituality. And then there's gender non-conforming or non-binary. So that is becoming more and more common. I notice it particularly among young people, although I don't think it's exclusive to young people in any way, but it's people that do not want to see themselves as either male or female. They see that gender is a spectrum, and they see themselves as being on that spectrum in a way that is non-binary. This includes people that are questioning, and then there's people that identify in many other ways, such as pansexual, asexual, androgynous, intersex, and it goes on. Like there's many ways of identifying. So I will use the word queer as an umbrella term. In the Satir world, we talk about self, other, and context. And so I want to talk about context because context has a huge impact on the queer community. That's the situation that many people in the queer community have to deal with. So many queer folk have experienced being told that they're either bad or evil, that they're mentally unstable, that they're wrong, they're just going through a phase, or in some kind of message that who they are is unacceptable. They may be rejected or may fear being rejected by the people that they look to for love and support. So these are key people that, I guess, children, for example, whose parents don't support them. It can be pretty devastating. So many, when I'm working with queer folk, many have very negative, internalized negative beliefs about their sexuality, about their gender, or about their value as a person. I mean, there's other populations, of course, that struggle with similar kinds of things, but this is the way that it shows up with queer folk can be a little bit different. I'm going to focus a little bit specifically with trans people because I think that in some ways My hunch is that that's less understood, or less, you might have less experience of working with people who are trans. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a background about that. So I want to talk about gender dysphoria, which is used to, in my work, I don't do diagnoses, but when somebody is wants to be treated and get support for being trans, they generally need a diagnosis of gender dysphoria. So it's important to have just a general sense of what that is. So we use the term transgender when a person whose sex was assigned at birth does not match their identity, their internal identity. So, usually when a child is born, we want to know, was it a boy or was it a girl? And they look at the genitalia, right? And so then, oh, it's a girl, so that's just assumed. And there's a lot of assumptions that are made about gender based on external genitalia, but it might not match somebody's internal experience. And that can create a lot of distress. So that's gender dysphoria, when there's huge distress around how I experience myself and how other people have identified me. And it can be quite significant distress. Sometimes it shows up in childhood, but not always. Some people don't have awareness of it till puberty or later. For somebody who is trans, puberty is often a very, very stressful time, because up until puberty, our bodies kind of aren't quite as sexually, that's the word I want, developed, so that we can kind of maybe pass or it's less, we have to deal less with the sexual expression of our bodies. But once puberty sets in, it can be very, very stressful. And this is where we see a lot of really sometimes quite extreme coping things coming up related to dysphoria. So it's also important to understand that people who are transgender may pursue multiple domains of gender affirmation. So there's different ways that they deal with it. One is social affirmation. This would be changing one's name or pronouns. So just socially, they might dress differently. So it's how they present, how they interact socially, asking you to use different pronouns, asking you to use a different name. There's legal affirmation, which is actually changing legal documents with a different gender or gender marker. In some countries, they recognize X, which would be like the non-binary, as a acceptable gender marker. Not all countries acknowledge that, or will even consider it as a possibility. There's medical affirmation. This is more the hormones. So for somebody who's hitting puberty and is already in distress about their gender, they would get hormones that would suppress the puberty development until they're older and they can decide how they want to proceed, or they can get gender affirming hormones. Usually that's people that are older, so it wouldn't be somebody in puberty, it would be somebody who's older and ready to make a decision about how they want to proceed. And then there's surgical affirmation. So there's all different kinds of surgeries that can be done. Now, it's important to understand that not everyone who's transgender will desire all of these, or it's very personal what people want to do and how they want to proceed. So you just need to understand that each person has to figure out what fits for them. Some people will just do the social and not want to go through all the others. Some people it'll be so important for them to get the surgeries, for example. Most will do some form of hormonal treatment, but there's all different things. And I want to note that this comes from the American Psychiatric Association. This description of gender dysphoria, which is, it's been very important to have this acknowledged. And I thought it's a really good overview of what of the experience of trans people and some things to be aware of. So now I'm going to dive into what are the goals of our work. So when we're working with people who are in the queer community, what are the things that we're going to be working on and looking for? I do want to say a word. You'll notice that when I talk about this, I switch between first person and third person, because I'm talking about the people that I work with, my clients, but it's also my own experience. And I think some of it is universal. It's our experience as people. So as I was kind of figuring out how to put this together, I thought, well, I'll use both. Sometimes I'm going to refer to, when I'm working with somebody, and sometimes I'm going to refer to it as in a first person perspective. One of the first things to think about is how to build a healthy relationship with self. It's very important that queer clients can learn to trust themselves, that they are the experts on their own internal experience. So many have gotten messages like other people telling them how they should feel, who they are, who they're not, what's not okay, or that kind of thing. So it's about really helping them begin to build a healthy relationship with themselves, that they can connect with who they are, and that's okay. We want to explore expectations. Each person's journey is unique. There's no right way to be queer, no right way to come out. So it's helping a person decide when it feels right to come out and when it feels safe to come out. Within the queer community, it is really not okay to out somebody. That's that you let other people know that they are whatever, that they're queer, without them, like it's up to them to do it. And if you do that to somebody else, that's really an unsafe behavior. And sometimes people will be out to some people and not others because some situations don't feel safe, or they're just not internally ready to make a step to be out. And so this is where expectations come in. It's very important to let go of expectations about how it should be, who should be out, who shouldn't be out, who they should talk to, that kind of thing. And they have to really work with connecting in a way that fits for them. And there's, of course, we all know this, that we, as people, we need connection. We're social beings. And it's very important to have places of support. However, being queer can be quite an isolating experience. So some of the people that I've met have been very isolated or have very high anxiety about connecting with others. They're very afraid of connection, about being judged, about not being accepted. So this puts queer people at higher risk of self-harm, of suicide and addictions, and other kinds of coping strategies. So of course, we need to provide safety within the counseling relationship. That's just a given. But we also really want to help people find peers and allies who are safe. Like, I have really learned about the resources that are available, that I could say, well, you can, like, different places I can refer people to, so that they can begin to find a place of safety where they can connect in an open way and share about who they are. Again, we want to help clients understand that other people's reactions are not their responsibility. So I think of this as the process of de-enmeshment. It's learning that other people's judgments and negative reactions belong to them, and we are not responsible for how others react. This is probably probably all of us struggle with this at some level. However, it's such an important step when, you know, we have felt so judged about just really our identity, how we identify ourselves and who we are. So, and sometimes others want us to feel responsible. They kind of put it on us. So sometimes it's not easy to set healthy boundaries, but having healthy boundaries is so critical, because then that gives us space to pay attention to self and to begin to prioritize that I can consider what feels safe for me and my own well-being. Or our clients, we want our clients to be able to do that. I really believe that we need to acknowledge grief. So coming to terms with our sexual orientation or our gender identity is really an empowering process. It's a very healing process. It is a very, very important process for our internal freedom. And there's also can be a lot of loss that's involved. It could be loss of relationships, loss of places of belonging, loss of feeling accepted, that kind of thing. So it's important to acknowledge both, that it is empowering, it is important, and there can be losses, and that we need to honor that grieving process and the pain of loss, so that we can move through that and have new possibilities and hope and see ourselves, see a positive future. We want to learn and practice self-compassion. We are learning to be gentle with self, to stay open and curious about our internal experiences, and that changes how we relate to ourselves. When we can do this, then we can process, we can have self-awareness, we can have forgiveness, and we can nurture the parts of us that need love and support, as opposed to judging it or trying to shut it down or whatever. We can be present to ourselves in a supportive way. I think this one is very important for the queer community. We want to honor and celebrate uniqueness and differences. So this can be if our clients have grown up feeling that their differentness just caused pain, or caused them to not be accepted, or caused them to be shamed, or cause them like bullying. There's all sorts of those kinds of experiences. It's hard to believe that our difference is actually valuable and important, and that it brings a perspective that the world needs. I mean, I believe that very deeply in my core, that we need those differences and we need to be able to honor them. And yet it can be hard to believe that for many, many queer people. But as they begin, I see as the healing process happens, as they begin to accept themselves, that they can kind of begin to understand that what they bring is really an important perspective that other people might not understand at first, but that as they begin to understand it, it makes our lives richer. Everybody's lives. It makes the world a richer place. So we want to honor that. And I think that this allows that kind of reciprocal giving and receiving of life energy. So that's, to me, what's core about this. We want to help people connect to hope. Because oftentimes when they're in their pain, they can lose hope, they can go sink into fear or despair. Many experience depression, very high anxiety, feeling overwhelmed. So as they find ways to connect with hope, they can see a bigger picture. They can begin to believe that it's possible to heal and that freedom is possible. And they begin to experience peace and that they can move forward. And the metaphor for me is that, like, hope is like giving a tired, dry, thirsty soul some water and a place to rest. It just is like, oh, I can be, and that's okay. I can rest. I can get the energy that I need to heal and to move forward. And so this is my last point. Um, it's about trusting the journey. So our journey, the journey of queer people, so it's a journey for all of us really, but the journey that I'm thinking about for queer people is about becoming more authentic and living a more fulfilling life. We want to find hope, find peace, and we want to connect to our wisdom. And like any journey, if there's, there's times when there's setbacks, dead ends, weariness. We just sometimes we don't think we're going to get there. It feels hard sometimes. But there's also those beautiful, tender moments where um, we're just touched very deeply, and then those beautiful vistas where we begin to see we see that something that we hadn't been able to see before, and that gives us hope and perspective and passion for the journey that we're on. And so it's such a sacred journey. It's a sacred journey of growth and self-awareness and connection. And I think about it, its connection to self, connection to others, and connection to universal wisdom. So it calls us back to that kind of deeper place of connection um, within, to others, and then to the universe. So here's a few questions that I have for you to just reflect on. The first is to notice if something touched you or resonated with you, and just to share about how this speaks to you. And also to notice if you have any puzzles or questions about what